Johnny, that's better than most.
How about in?
That is better than most. Better than most!
You're listening to the Bump and Run Golf Podcast on WHIP Radio with Dalton Ballphaser.
Oh, wow! In your life have you seen anything like that?
Good morning, people of Earth and golf fans everywhere. You're listening to the Bump and Run Golf Podcast on WHIP Radio, Philadelphia's #1 college radio station, and this is episode 11, U.S. Open Golf Championship recap, and this show is going to be packed with great stuff from Oakmont and how Dustin Johnson finally put it all together to take his first major championship title. I'll take you through the final round, and I'll take you through my trip as I was out at Oakmont for the 116th U.S. Open. I'll talk about my experience out there at Oakmont, and I'll give my best, worst, and most interesting things that I saw out at Oakmont over the weekend and what impressed me the most about Oakmont now officially holding the most U.S. Opens in history with 9, and my takeaways from the second major of the year that resulted in a newly minted major champion. So stay tuned. You're listening to the Bump and Run Golf Podcast on WHIP Radio, Philadelphia's #1 college radio station. Sunday at the 116th U.S. Open was jam-packed full of action due to about 3 inches that fell on the golf course on Thursday that caused a very long rain delay. Some of the leaders needed to finish up their third rounds on Sunday morning, and at that point, Irishman Shane Lowry just took absolute control of this golf tournament, and he made 2 birdies in his final 3 holes to finish his third round with a 65, besting Andrew Landry's 4-under par 66 as the low round of the week. And after that 65, Lowry entered the final round with a 4-shot lead over Dustin Johnson and Landry. Once again, DJ struggled on a Saturday, and he shot a 71. Nothing was going in, no putts were going in. He was just a little off, and many people were thinking that it just wasn't going to happen for him this year at the U.S. Open after the heartbreak at Chambers Bay. But Dustin Johnson ended up being paired with Englishman Lee Westwood in the final round, and on the first hole, he basically almost drove the green. He hit a 379-yard drive, and his putting was just really weird. Sometimes he'd make some putts, and he 3-putted for par, basically. He was just off the green. He didn't get up and down for birdie, which really kind of slowed his momentum. He would have got off to a great start with a birdie, and throughout the front 9, DJ made a birdie, got himself to 4-under, and all of a sudden, Shane Lowry just started to drop off the top of the leaderboard. After his front 9, Shane Lowry was 3 over par. He shot 38 on the front, and his lead had dwindled to only a couple of shots. And coming down the stretch, Lowry was getting a lot of pressure from Dustin Johnson, who kept chugging along. He made a birdie to get to 5 under and take a 2-shot lead over Shane Lowry, who was just falling apart. It was tough to see because after his third round of 65, I thought it was going to be very tough for Lowry to be beaten. But that's what happens with that final round nerves at a major championship. He won last year in August at the WGC Bridgestone Invitational in Akron, Ohio at Firestone Country Club, and Oakmont is not far away from that golf course, so, he's basically right next to where he won his first PGA Tour event, and I thought it was going to be very easy for him to take this with a 4-shot lead, but as we've seen over the years, it's very tough to close out golf tournaments, whether it's a major or just any other event on tour. And there was some big news surrounding Dustin Johnson after the 5th hole, and it was made aware to the USGA that Dustin Johnson's ball moved after he addressed it on the 5th hole, making a putt for par. And after watching the video, which, Dustin Johnson took his 2 practice strokes right next to the ball, he set his putter down next to the ball, not behind the ball, and moved his putter over with the putter still in the air, not grounding his putter, addressing the ball, and the ball moved. And many believe that, the greens were 14 feet 5 inches, and they were just so fast and they were rolled so beautifully that the ball could have just oscillated itself. And everyone, the Fox crew, the radio crew that all the spectators get, they get a little earpiece that they could listen to the SiriusXM radio guys calling it as they're sitting in the grandstands or walking around. They all said that they didn't see a penalty. But then once the 12th tee came about, Dustin Johnson heard that he might be getting a penalty for that 7 holes after the fact, which is absolutely absurd. I'll talk about that later in pinseeking. And he went about the whole back 9, minded his own business, and took care of what he had to get done. And coming down the stretch, stretch, it was basically Dustin Johnson out there by himself. But he did have some chasers in Scott Piercy, and Jim Furyk was already in the clubhouse at 1 under par, so he put a nice number up after a final round of 66. After making a clutch par putt on the 16th hole, Dustin Johnson came to 17, the drivable par 4, looking for a birdie to give himself some cushion, and he pulled out driver, and everyone in the 18th grandstand listening to the radio, once they heard that, they all moaned in disbelief, wondering what the heck's he doing with a couple of shot lead. And he hit a really beautiful drive into that front greenside bunker, and he had a mediocre bunker shot to 25-30 feet out of that. He could have done a lot better. He ended up 2-putting for par, and he came to the 18th needing a par to give himself a very good chance to win his first major title. He came in there at 4 under par, and Lowry was at 1 under par, and he still hadn't played the 17th yet. So there was a lot of golf left. It wasn't over by any means, and DJ came up to the 18th. Everyone chanting his name. The galleries at Oakmont were just fantastic. Everyone was cheering. Everyone was rooting for DJ. And it was very easy to tell once Lowry made a bogey because everyone was clapping and cheering. And not that no one was rooting for Lowry, but the gallery just wanted to see DJ break through and win his first major. And on the last, just like at Chambers Bay last year, he needed a big drive off the tee. And at Chambers Bay, he ripped it 340, 350. On the 18th at Oakmont, he ripped it just as well. He only hit it about 305, but he absolutely mashed it down the middle of the fairway. And he got into the center of the fairway with a pin in the back right, basically pitched right between 2 ridges. A lot of the balls throughout the day were either hitting the ridge and spinning back or coming up short as they were trying to run up that slope. And the best shot of the day was easily Zach Johnson. He hit it about pin high left, 15 feet, and he rolled that putt in. That was the only birdie of the day at the time on the 18th in the 4th round. And DJ came up, he had a mid-iron in hand, and him and his caddy, Austin Johnson, his brother, they were talking about it. And DJ was basically ready to swing, and he started his swing, and he heard a little camera and a phone vibration in his backswing, and he was able to stop, which was a good thing. And he got all set, went through his routine, and he got up and he ripped it, and they showed the Pro Tracer on Fox, and it never left the flagstick, and it hit about 4 feet below the flag, rolled up, cozied a nice 3 feet. And here's the call by Joe Buck and Paul Azinger of Fox Sports on Dustin Johnson's clutch shot to the 18th green.
What a gem, Dustin Johnson!
Johnson stuffed it to about 3 feet above the hole with a chance for birdie and to officially put the nail in the coffin on the rest of the field and claim his first major championship. And as you could tell in that audio clipping, the gallery erupted in cheer for Dustin Johnson. That was the case all day. As I said earlier, the whole crowd was just really behind him, rooting for him. They were rooting for hometown hero Jim Furyk as well, but he didn't really have much of a chance. DJ would have had to make triple on the 18th for him to really have any chance, and that shot DJ hit was absolutely pure, and he said that it was probably the best shot he's ever hit in his life under the circumstances, and that is absolutely true. It was absolutely pure, and it never left the flagstick. He stared at it the whole way, and he knew it was good. And DJ would come up to that 3-footer, go through his routine. He'd have to back off because of one of the loud and obnoxious spectators kept chanting, "DJ, you the man." And he had to back off, and everyone in the crowd is mumbling their disbelief, just saying, "Be quiet, let this guy put this putt in so we can all go crazy." And he went through his routine, and he hit this putt very softly down the hill, and it rolled right in the gutter, and the crowd absolutely erupted in delight for Dustin Johnson as he claimed his first major championship. And right afterwards, he gave a real big fist pump and hugged his brother Austin, and the whole clan came running over. His fiancée, Paulina Gretzky, daughter of Hall of Fame and legendary hockey player Wayne Gretzky, came over and gave him a big hug, and so did their son, Tatum. Waiting for Dustin underneath the 18th tower was the Golden Bear himself, Jack Nicklaus, who's congratulated him on a job well done and was going to present the champion with the trophy and the gold medal. The crowd just kept chanting his name, DJ, DJ, as he walked into the clubhouse to sign his score, absolutely focused on making sure he had the right score so he would not disqualify his championship. And after signing his scorecard, the USGA did enforce that 1-stroke penalty for grounding his club and getting for his ball moving as he was grounding his club, but he really didn't do anything. It didn't really matter, but that would have been a heck of a thing if that would have cost him another major championship, like grounding the club in the bunker did for him in 2010 at Whistling Straits. But Dustin Johnson shot a final round 69 of 1 under 69 to take his first major championship and make it 8 straight years on tour that he has had a victory. Here's what he had to say in his interview with Fox's Joe Buck after claiming his first major championship at the 116th United States Open Golf Championship at Oakmont Country Club out near Pittsburgh.
Ladies and gentlemen, your United States Open champion, Dustin Johnson. First of all, let's honor these fans. What a great ovation for you, and what do you have to say to these fans that were cheering you on down the stretch here today?
I just got to say thank you. I had a lot of support out there. Pittsburgh fans are great. Yeah, I mean, it was very nice to have all the support. It definitely helped me coming down the stretch.
What does it mean to you to finally be called a major champion in the world of golf?
Well, it hasn't quite sunk in yet, but it feels great. You know, obviously I've been here a bunch of times and haven't, quite got it done, but today I did, and it feels really good.
I want to talk to you about what was, at least at the time, a controversy when you were standing on the tee at 12. You were told by members of the USGA that there was potentially a one-stroke penalty coming your way for the ball moving on the green at 5. Talk us through that conversation and what your mindset. How were you able to put that aside and go about doing your job winning this championship?
It's something they said we were going to look at when I got done, so I just tried to, focus on what I was doing, not worrying about the penalty stroke, and, just playing golf from there to the house.
Which you did. You birdied 18. We saw you back off that second shot here at 18, and then you just jammed it right behind the pin here. That's a nice way to finish.
It was a very nice way to finish. Might be one of the best shots I've ever hit, especially in the circumstance. I was very happy to see I had a little 3-footer to finish.
And as we wrap up, Dustin, real quick, Paulina's right here, and then your son Tatum, 18 months old. This is quite a nice Father's Day for you.
Best Father's Day ever. One thing I do want to do is I want to thank Oakmont and Bob Ford. They did a great job this week. The course was fantastic. The USGA and especially all the fans.
Dustin Johnson, ladies and gentlemen, the 116th United States Open champion.
I see a lot more majors in DJ's future. He's a very talented individual. He just needs to get that monkey off his back of winning his first major, which he has done, and I think he's got a lot of majors left in him. Next up, pin seeking.
Be the right club today.
There are quite a lot of great things that I saw out at Oakmont in my first U.S. Open trip, and the first thing that I want to start with is just the whole spectator experience. There was a lot of great stuff out there for the spectators. The merchandise tent was absolutely huge, unlike anything I've ever seen before. Polos, posters, ball markers, shorts, mugs, hats, anything you thought of as a golf fan, it was in that merchandise tent. And there were a couple of other things as well. There was an epic putt challenge where they had one of Oakmont's greens fenced off, and the average fan could go in and hit some putts and see what the greens would be like at Oakmont. And the first one I 3-putted. I lipped out my second putt from about 7 feet, but I 2-putted the second one, and then the last one was like a 30-footer, very slick down the hill, had a decent amount of break, and I just barely touched the putt, and it rolled end over end down the hill, and it was tracking very nicely. And with about 4 feet to go, I said, do it. And then I said, do it again. And I was like, go in. And it rolled right in the center of the hole, and it was so cool because I fist pumped, and it felt like I won the U.S. Open and kind of had that feeling like Dustin Johnson did on Sunday, except his was about 10 times less in distance. But that was pretty cool. I also got to meet 1973 U.S. Open champion and course record holder at Oakmont, Johnny Miller, and that was pretty cool as well. He signed a hat that I had won from one of the other Lexus challenges, and he was just really cool to talk to about his experiences at Oakmont and what that final round was like. My favorite part of the whole spectator experience and everything at Oakmont goes twofold. It was the golf course and just the crowd in general. The golf course, Superintendent John Zimmers did an absolutely incredible job with the golf course. The greens were absolutely pure. The bunkers were pure. The fairways were pure. The tees were pure. The markers were pure. Everything was pure. All of the fairways were cut perfectly straight. All of the tees were cut perfectly straight. All the greens were cut perfectly straight. They were rolled beautifully. The grass was cut beautifully. All the bunkers were raked great. I've never seen a golf course like I saw Oakmont this weekend. Absolutely perfect in every way. Yeah, everyone talks about Augusta, but I saw this firsthand. I haven't been to Augusta yet, which I plan on doing very soon. But Oakmont was in such great shape, and as Mike Davis, the executive director and CEO, said a couple of weeks ago, Oakmont could hold a U.S. Open with a week's notice. That's how great they keep the golf course. It was just incredible how great of shape the golf course was, and the fans and the spectators were great. On Sunday, I sat in the 18th grandstands right behind the green for about 11 hours. I got there at around 8 a.m. and sat there until 9 p.m. I saw every group come through, and I got to see DJ's final shot and final putt from about 40 yards away. It was just so cool to see the crowd just absolutely erupt when guys like Sergio, Matt Kuchar, Graham McDowell, Jordan Spieth, all those guys were coming in and they gave him a great ovation. They got, a great response from the players, and it was just really cool to see what it's actually like in the U.S. Open. You can only see so much on TV, and what I found great about it, these guys are so meticulous. Watching them on the range on Saturday morning was incredible. Seeing Rory bomb at 330, no problem. Hitting it like an arrow out there. Seeing Rafa Cabrera Bello basically hit 10 straight shots right at a flag, not even moving at all. It was just absolutely incredible just to see how good these guys really are. You take it for granted on TV, they're sometimes in the trees, sometimes they're in the woods, but these guys can really play. They were pounding drivers, hitting wedges tight, and it was just really cool to see, Butch Harmon going around to all of his different students and seeing Rory and Jordan Spieth talk a little bit, and seeing Jason Duffner with his headphones on and everything like that. It was just so cool to see these guys in their element, and that's why those guys are so good, because that's their craft. And it was just really interesting to see, guys like Brooks Koepka just taking on bunkers 320 off the tee with a baby cut and everything like that. It just makes me want to play more golf and just gives me the itch. And for my first U.S. Open, I think it was a pretty good one to go to, seeing DJ come down the stretch and take that U.S. Open. But I will never forget that putt that I made on one of Oakmont's greens, and I'll never forget the finish that DJ had. It was just absolutely incredible, and just an experience that you can't get from sitting at home and watching your TV. It was definitely worth every second of the drive out to Pittsburgh and everything that went along with it. And as a result, I even got on TV quite a few times, wearing my bright orange Muskilum Springs Golf Club polo and my Seabird bucket hat that I got at the U.S. Open, which is a great protector from the sun, considering I was in it for 11 hours on Sunday. Next up, the worst thing that I saw over the weekend at Oakmont comes courtesy of the USGA and their handling of Dustin Johnson's so-called grounding of the putter, which would eventually give him a penalty stroke at the end of his final round.
What the hell's going on out here?
The worst thing that I saw at Oakmont during my trip over the weekend was the USGA and their handling of Dustin Johnson and his whole grounding of the putter thing and his penalty. The whole idea of this was Dustin Johnson on the fifth hole went through his practice routine and put his putter behind the ball, not grounding his club, keeping it hovered, and the ball moved, and everyone was saying that it wasn't a penalty, which it really isn't. He didn't make the ball move. Other factors were at play, the fast green speed, maybe a little wind, and on the fifth hole, he said to Lee Westwood about it, and, he brought in a USGA official, and Westwood said, he didn't make it move and everything. So then after that fifth hole, that should be it. That's it. But then, of course, with this technology, someone called in and said that he made the ball move, which made the USGA look at the monitor again and come to the conclusion on the 12th hole that they're still going to review it and let him know after the round whether he's getting a penalty or not. Oh, well, that's great. On the 18th hole, just say he's in a playoff with Shane Lowry. Oh, I'm sorry, DJ, there's a stroke penalty for your grounding of the club and moving of the ball on 5. you're not going to be in the playoffs. Sorry about that. Basically like what happened at Whistling Straight. I just thought it was so stupid. Throughout the day, you're hearing that Sirius XM team talk about it, and they're like, there's no way it's a penalty. Fox is like, no way it's a penalty. Azinger, Brad Faxon, no way this is a penalty. Then the USGA thinks, let's go after DJ again. I just don't think that there was any reason that they should have been considering it after that fifth hole. Once that official was brought in, they talked about it. Lee Westwood said nothing happened. Once that fifth hole's over, that's it. It's done. No more. But they continued to drag it on for 12 holes, and DJ had that in the back of his mind, waiting to see if he was going to get a penalty, and everyone else knew about it. Sergio said it was good that USGA did it, but it didn't really matter to him, because he really wasn't in contention. But for DJ coming down the 18th, not knowing what could happen, was just very stupid, and I thought the USGA, how they handled it, was just terrible. When Shane Bacon of Fox interviewed Thomas Pagel and another gentleman about this whole ruling fiasco, they just looked like Dumb and Dumber. They really didn't know what to say. They just were kind of making stuff up, it seemed, because they didn't have anything really to give Johnson that penalty. Once that fifth hole's over, it's over. You can't bring back something that's already gone. That's like in an NFL game, a Hail Mary to win the game. You know, Aaron Rodgers to Richard Rodgers against the Lions last year. And then all of a sudden, 3 days later, or after the game's over, after everyone celebrated the Packers win, oh, there was a pass interference call on the offense on Richard Rodgers before he made that catch. Well, they're never going to overturn it because the game's over. They can't do that. That's the same with this penalty. They can't do it after that fifth hole's over. Once DJ and Westwood teed off on the sixth hole, that's it. It's over. They can't do anything about it. But with technology, someone called in and made them rethink what they already thought, and then DJ got a penalty as a result. But if it would have cost him that tournament, that would have been a real uproar from the USGA. Jordan Spieth, Ricky Fowler, Rory McIlroy really took to Twitter, as many other touring pros did, and were really irritated at the USGA and their whole idea of that penalty. And they're like, where I come from, that's not a penalty. Rory McIlroy even said he would have stopped playing until a decision was made, which that's tough to tell. I don't think he would have done that. But still, I just don't think that it was right, and it didn't make any sense. The USGA really handled that, and it kind of made me a little sour about, whether they wanted DJ to win after his whole cocaine incident with the PGA Tour a few years ago. But rules are rules, and I just don't understand why they had to go back because someone called in. No one should be allowed to call in on these rulings, because what happens is they don't see it, and then all of a sudden someone calls in, and then they notice it. It's their job to find that stuff out if that stuff happens. That's why they have all the volunteers. That's why they have all the USGA rules officials and members of the USGA conducting these tournaments. It was a bad moment for the USGA, but they were lucky Dustin Johnson had more than a one-shot lead or was tied for the lead, because that would have really caused an uproar for their organization. That's going to do it for the 11th episode of the Bump and Run Golf Podcast, the U.S. Open recap. I want to thank you all out there for listening and listening to my trip out to Oakmont, which was a great time, and I really enjoyed it, and it was a great way to spend my first U.S. Open. So stay tuned for my next episode in a few weeks, where the British Open at Royal Troon will take place, and Dustin Johnson will look to win back-to-back major championships. So once again, I want to thank you all out there for listening, and you can follow me on Twitter at Dalton Balthaser for all the latest in the golf industry. And until next time, my golf friends, for...